Today we learn a lot. We will color correct and color grade 3 drone clips all the way starting from zero without making use of LUTs. I will show you a step-by-step workflow so that you easily understand how to tweak all those sliders to achieve a cinematic look and different styles with your edits. I will also explain how to extract unwanted colors and how to make specific ones stand out and let them pop in your videos. Have fun! The very first thing I highly recommend is to create an organized and structured working setup. We will now open up all the essential tabs which we need for our color grade. This would be the Lumetri Color tab and the Lumetri Scopes panel with the waveform and the Luma RGB waves. If you don't see them by default, you simply select the Window tab on the top. In general, the waveform affects our exposure. The RGB parade is used for correcting white balance. We always have to focus on the proper color correction to set the right exposure before we even start color grading. Therefore, we open up our waveform tab. All the data and information of our clips is spread out in this chart. The blacks will affect the darkest parts in the image and are found on the bottom at 0, while the white control obviously represent the brightest parts of your image. Highlights and shadows are slightly different. They don't affect the top or the bottom of the image, they affect the range above in the highlight area and under the midtones in the shadow area. If you shot your footage on the flat D-Log picture profile, the chart will look a little bit compressed and we have to spread it out to bring life and contrast to it. First, we are starting by moving the blacks to the left to bring the dark parts a little bit above 0. Vice versa, we move the whites to just below 100 to avoid clipping in our footage. Then we play around with our highlights and shadows till we are happy with the results. And to spread it out even more, we add contrast. In the RGB curves you will also see this graph. Here you can play around with highlights, shadows and midtones either. If you shape it like a S-curve, you can spread out the chart even more. Many people are also lifting their shadows on the left. If you want to achieve a cinematic look, this is the way to go, since it will soften your shadows and give it a moody feeling. This is just a quick overview about all the basics, so don't worry if this isn't 100% clear right now. We will completely walk through 2 more clips in just a second. Now that we have a color corrected image, we can move on and correct our white balance. As you see, my blues are higher than the reds, so it means my clip is a little bit too cold. To adjust the white balance, we could play around with the tint and temperature and adjust the sliders manually to neutralize the RGB parades. Or we could simply use the white balance selector tool. To do that, you just pick this pipette and click on the widest parts of the image. Now, your white balance is perfectly balanced with only 1 click. Obviously, the best results can be achieved if you already shot your clips with the right exposure and the right white balance for your specific scene, location or daytime. As always, everything starts with the right camera settings. Now that we have a well-exposed image and a corrected white balance, you can already see a huge improvement to our original clip. This is a solid base for our color grading part, and now we can move on and start playing around with our colors. As you probably know, there's always more than one way to achieve something in Premiere Pro. We will now apply 2 different methods to color grade your drone videos. If you click on the Curves tab to the right, you will see this chart popping up. If you click somewhere on this chart, you create keyframes. By doing that, you're able to change specific colors and you're also able to isolate or enhance them within this tab. In this example shot, we have different elements like the water, the boats or the houses in the background to play around with. One thing to mention here is that you shouldn't go too wild with these cursors. If you're looking for a cinematic look, you should always aim for natural and realistic colors. Let's say I want to change the saturation of our blues in the water. Then I would simply isolate everything except the blue part by clicking left and right of it. Now I'm able to increase or decrease the blue tones. If you want to know which exact color you're working with, there's an easy trick for that. You just have to select this eyedropper and click anywhere on the screen to get the specific color you want to change. So if I want to get the exact blue tone of the water, I just click on it and Premiere will automatically set points to isolate everything except your wanted color. Now you can change this blue tone to your liking. If I now apply the same method for the red tones on the boats or the yellow and orange tones on the houses, we are able to let these colors pop. Let's say you have a different clip where you don't want any magenta or green tone in your shots, you would simply isolate these colors and drag them down to the very bottom. If your colors are still too dominant, you can always go back and play around with your saturation and contrast to give it a more realistic feeling. Another way to color grade would be the HSL secondary option. Personally, I think the curves are more accurate and easier to handle, but sometimes this tool can be very useful. Here you can click on this checkbox to gray out specific colors. Just select the point in your image where you want to increase or decrease a color. By using the pipette with the plus icon, you achieve more accuracy. After sliding around these cursors to isolate your wanted area, you should also boost the denoise and blur sliders to feather it out and get smoother edges. Now you can move this cross on the wheel to change the color of your selection. If you use it correctly, the overall mood of the image can be affected. Here's a quick before and after. You can always reverse the step, which means you can select a color and change everything except your highlighted areas by clicking this box right here. Okay, this was a lot of information. Now you saw the whole process of color correcting and color grading a video. To make sure you actually understand everything I've just told you, we will again walk through 2 clips from start to finish and we will apply everything we have learned so far. These are the videos we will walk through step by step again. Now you can sit back and let everything sink in to get confident with your color grading. We select our clip, we set up our essential tabs, and now we start color correcting by spreading out our chart. We are decreasing the blacks so that they slightly touch the bottom area, we're lifting the whites to just below 100, and now we play around with our highlights and shadows before we add contrast to spread out our chart even more. Next we are building our white S-shaped curve, and we also raise the point on the left for softer shadows to achieve a cinematic look. Now we dive into the curves tab and increase or decrease the colors we want. Like I said before, try to stay natural and realistic. If you are done and want to fine adjust your colors, play around with the saturation and contrast in the basic correction tab. This was the first clip we color corrected and color graded. The same process will be applied to our second clip. Decreasing blacks, lifting the whites, adjust the highlights and shadows, add contrast, build the S-curve by setting up the 3 points. Now we play around with our colors in the curves tab and adjust everything to our liking till we are happy with the result. In this case we are facing a problem. Since I decreased the orange tones of the mountains, the sunset in the sky is affected either. In the next video I will show you how you can separate different areas from each other by using masks. And I will also show different methods to highlight colors in specific areas without affecting the whole image.